Welcome everyone to another episode of Get Tech Smart. I am your host, Flo Nicholas, and we are here to talk all things as usual, techie that are happening right here in New Hampshire. So back again, actually so quickly. Wait, I don't even think it's been like 2 weeks. I can't remember. At Jeff Lapak, if you remember, I did an episode with UNH Innovation, and Jeff, you are the director at the Interoperability Lab, and woo, I said it right this time.
Bingo.
Yes. So we have some friends that you brought along. But we will get into more detail why Sriyam is here, while Matt is here, and while Lincoln is here. But we'll introduce them in just a moment. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you, Flo.
I'm glad you had so much fun and you were excited to come back. And one of the things that we discussed at the end of last show is that you wanted to get into the more technical details about what you're working on at the lab with students. So let's jumpstart there, and then I'll have you introduce everyone else.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having us back. I was just, Get Tech Smart, really wanted to dive into the tech, and we were a little more business focused last time, so I thought that this would be a good opportunity. So I guess to start back at the beginning, the Interoperability Lab, it's part of the University of New Hampshire, and we provide third-party testing services to the data communications industry. And so when I say data communications, I really mean like any two objects that talk to each other. Right? If there's ones and zeros that have to go from one point to another, or data, we probably are involved in some aspect of that testing. So everything from computer software all the way down to hardware and things like wireless technologies. And so I brought a few different folks from my lab team.
Bring them into this party.
And I will have them introduce themselves and kind of the technical areas that they are interested in. But we've got a mix of students and staff here, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Sriyam Rimal. I'm a junior IT major at UNH, and I'm a wireless technician in the broadband industry at the IOL.
Yeah, my name is Matt Corso. I'm a graduate student pursuing a degree in electrical engineering. And I work in the automotive Ethernet physical layer testing, but I've also spent some time in the time-sensitive networking area as well.
And my name is Lincoln Lavoie. I'm a principal engineer at the lab. No longer a student, as probably apparent. But I do have a degree, master's degree in electrical engineering, and I'm leading our broadband industry, which encompasses both our open source involvement as well as efforts like 802.11 Wi-Fi or wireless, where Sriyam works.
And Lincoln, age is nothing but a number. We got people out here. Listen, my husband is back in school right now. He's in his 50s, so he's going to get his PhD. He's an electrical engineer, so just like Matt here. So yeah, I'm happy you guys are here, and I'm very happy that you're here as well. I think you are a great representation to show that, women in tech, minorities in tech, which is one of my platforms. So welcome here. So, all right, let's get in the nitty gritty. What are you guys working on? And let's also talk about, one more time, some of the companies that you get to work with, and how that's important, because a lot of students get to work with the same companies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with global companies everywhere, basically. And they are, the big name companies are coming right here to New Hampshire to get their testing done. So these are the Apples, Microsofts, Cisco Systems, Junipers of the universe, who have a need to come to us to validate something or get something, some questions answered. And the students are really the ones who are doing the testing. And that's what makes our lab so exciting, is they get one-on-one experience working with the engineers in those companies. Those companies come to visit, they're on Zoom calls, they're doing all this interaction and really building up that network of people in addition to the skills. And so I guess it would be great if you could go a little bit deeper, maybe into your technical areas, and just how that's interacted with your classwork, your academic life, and how you think it's going to launch out into your career too.
And before you get into details, let's start with what made you decide to get into the IT sector?
Well, it was mostly an influence from my dad. He has a lot of experience in the tech industry. He did like information systems type of thing, and he used to do QA. Now they're not really doing QA anymore. They're kind of shifting that role away. But regardless, I originally was a computer science major my freshman year, but I switched to IT because I would rather have a more focused sense in what I would like to do, a little bit less of the programming that some people like, some people don't. So that was my major decision. Just also, job stability is good to have, but it's good to learn how to solve problems in the way that you do in a technical field. It's something that you have to rewire your brain almost to solve a problem that way. And I think it's interesting, so that's why.
I love that. And so for me, it seems like the exposure was a great start for you. And this is one thing that I always talk about on the show is why early childhood exposure to STEM is so critical, because when you look at women who are getting into computer science or IT, the numbers are so low. So I'm happy you kind of mentioned that influence of, seeing your dad. But what have you been learning, and how has it had an impact? Because one of the things Jeff was also talked about was how we're seeing this shift where there's more hands-on training versus just, classroom training, but students are actually able to go work with companies. And how is that working out for you? How do you like it?
I think it's a great exposure to doing what you're actually learning in class. So, for example, so I'm a wireless technician, as I mentioned. What that means for me is essentially I test Wi-Fi routers, and I also test stations, which can be anything that connects to a wireless network. So when I do that, we work in a group of 4 currently, or actually 1 more. And you work in a team with other people, and we use this specific set of boxes called the Octabox, which is basically a controlled environment where there's no other networks interfering. So then you can test the router in a safe environment where you can basically measure the throughput, which is the how you connect to the network. Sorry, excuse me if I'm stumbling over my words here.
I love this. No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
So,
so you're testing the quality.
Essentially, sometimes it can be a performance test.
Okay.
With other things, it's less of a performance test just to see overall connectivity. We're working on other test plans right now.
Yeah.
I'm working on a test plan right now, actually. Lincoln is hoping that we can get it published soon.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's bring you in, Lincoln. And talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so she's actually one of the authors for our updates to our interop test plan. So the lab has traditionally kind of focused on 2 areas. One would be interoperability testing, so company A product against company B product. When you're putting that into your network, whether it's a home network or commercial network, you want that to meet the requirements that you would expect it to do and operate according to the standard. So we've been doing, and what her team's been working on is actually updating some of our older test plans in the interoperability space, getting those kind of caught up with the latest developments in the standards, how the devices work, and then getting that kind of through the review process, and then it'll get published out to our website and our customers. And then those engineering companies coming in to test products will actually be coming in and working directly with that test plan that they'll be working in the lab and producing the reports and stuff.
Yeah, what a fantastic way when she graduates. And one of the things that we always say when students graduate, they always say, well, what's your experience? What have you done? And imagine the students are getting into these interviews and they're like, oh, well, thank you for asking. Well, I wrote 10 articles. So it's a great way to have the students graduate into this competitive job market.
Yeah, that publish code, publish specifications, participating in like the open source activities where we're involved, being able to have names out there of like tangible, I worked on this and you can actually get to it, is a big deal. And so like we have our students that have published on our website for like our own test plans. We have students that are working with industry forums like the Broadband Forum, where they're actually contributing contribution material to the forum, and then the forum debates it and discusses it technical and may actually then bring it into their work, and then it becomes published there, and so you're kind of a contributor that way. So there's a lot of opportunities to actually get that kind of connecting to what's going on in the industry and actually be able to kind of build that repertoire beyond just, hey, I did a class assignment. It's I did something real.
Right, yeah. I did something that Apple is using or
That's
Google.
the fun part to me. It's actually being used by those customers. So it's something that's got real utility. It's not even just your own project. It's, oh, other people reference this as the way to do it,
Right.
which is very exciting.
No, I think it's fantastic. I think it's when you get out there, she doesn't even have to put in a resume. They're just gonna call you. You know, she'll be on the beach like, oh, who's calling? Apple? You know, tell them to wait. So Matt, you're a graduate student. So let's bring you in the equation and talk about what you've been able to work on and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Now I'm working in automotive networking, actually. So believe it or not, your car actually it has networking inside it. And the reason for that is the third heaviest part of your car actually is the cabling harness.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not.
Wow, I thought that engine. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
So you got the engine and the frame, and then the next thing after that is the cabling harness. That's the heaviest. And so they're trying to do as much as they can to make cars more efficient. And so they're introducing networking into cars. And so I work in single pair Ethernet actually. So it's your normal Ethernet has 8 conductors or in 4 pairs essentially. This has 1/4 of that, but it's still doing the same speeds that your normal Ethernet in your home is actually doing, believe it or not. And so I test the physical layer, the actual electrical signaling on the line for this type of networking. And there's also some different areas of where this networking is being applied, but that's basically where I'm working in right now.
Right, and would we see this more in like for example, self-driving cars where there seems to be like really a lot of more computerized?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big applications for that space is, cars just like every network.
Right.
People always want more. And as cars get more sensors, you
Yeah.
got your backup camera, you have all the little sensors that beep when you're getting too close to
Yeah.
objects. All those need more and more bandwidth. And
Right.
so bringing a higher bandwidth network into the cars
Right.
both reduces the complexity and increases the number of things you can stick in there.
Yeah.
And especially with sensors and cameras, you can't afford necessarily to compress the signal, from like a camera. Say you have, like a HD camera, you can't afford to compress that if the car is using that camera data to, sense if there's a person in the street, right? Like
Right.
they can't afford the time it takes to compress it and then, decompress it on the other side of the link. So they really have to send the full stream of data, through the networking link, which is why they need higher and higher speeds in cars.
Right, and I think that demand for speed just continues to go up and up, especially when we see with 5G, the demand for 5G, where some people are already talking about 6G, and I'm like, wow, we haven't even fully deployed 5G.
Lincoln will talk all
Yeah,
about it.
5G is kind of the thing that I've been working on lately, more than anything else. But where we're at in that is we're starting to see them kind of roll out, as you said, 5G onto the network, right? And so like they're starting to actually put, the first component of that, which would be kind of 5G NR or new radio.
Okay,
out
well,
there.
before you go into detail about that, let's kind of define a little bit 5G and why there's such a high demand.
Sure. So those that may not have kind of grown up in the mobile space, mobile's kind of evolved over the years from 2G to 5G. And what that is the generation of the standards that are coming out of 3GPP and kind of like a family as things have progressed. And so 5G is the 5th generation of that kind of mobile family out there. Each generation typically brings kind of 2 pieces. One would be the radio network, so that, what the signal is that's flying around in the air to us. And then the core network, where the core network is everything that's kind of hidden behind the scenes that's actually making it go. 5G, as you mentioned, Flo, it's one of the 2 targets is really bringing the speeds up, right? So it's really trying to push the envelope in terms of how fast your connection is to your mobile device or the device that is the station. And then the second piece is that they're really trying to be able to do a lot more programmability into the network to control things like latency, as well as bring in some flexibility into it. And then where that's aiming for is, as you mentioned, like self-driving or autonomous cars and stuff like that, these all relate together. So your 5G network being a low latency to maybe some local compute so that the car can actually have a very, quick channel to that compute that might be updating traffic conditions or accidents or something like that back to it so that the car can then make routing decisions or decision on where path it's going to take or anything like that. So it's kind of all the technologies really do kind of play
Right.
together in that way.
Right, just real simply, we just want things faster. Right? we want to be able.
Well, when the car drives yourself, you have more time for
Right.
TikTok. So
Right, exactly. Although that is not recommended. Okay? Just still be paying attention to the road. And so, why do you think companies are coming to the university and wanting to work with your teams and your students?
If I may.
Sure.
Part of it is definitely the cost of equipment. They don't have to hire their own employees to do this. They can set up a contract with us and then have students do it for them. So one of those things is the Octobox, which I mentioned earlier. It's this big, I guess you could compare it to a Faraday cage, which is basically blocking out any networks. That is $250,000. So
wow.
if a company were to buy that, that's a big investment. They have to hire employees that know how to work with it. And that's just not always within the scope of what a company can do. So
Right.
it's hiring other people so they don't have to worry about it.
Right, it's outsourcing, right? But outsourcing, which is great for students, right? Because then you're able to kind of take what you're learning in the classroom and then get that hands-on experience of actually testing out the equipment and testing out like, hey, does this work? Does it not work? And then trying to do critical thinking, trying to figure out, well, it's not working, but why? What's the source of the problem, and then just kind of go from there.
I think that's a great take on it. Again, I think one of the advantages of us is we're really good at working with small businesses,
Yeah.
and that was a great example. Like a small business
Yeah.
may not have a big capital budget to go out and do that, so outsourcing through us is a cheaper way. And then the second big piece is, when we've kind of been dancing around it, is really that workforce development.
Yeah.
So we're building, the companies want students to be working on this stuff so that they can hire them in and they hit the ground running. So they're already, I know that person, they come right onto the team and they're a seamless part of that company's growth. So, we really hit it from a bunch of different angles.
Yeah. No, that's definitely great. Just having like the it's like you're working as a student, but that small business or that other company, that's a future employer for you, and you're a future employee, so that makes sense. I think it's great for our job ecosystem as well. And Matt?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit too, actually. Like just a few weeks ago, we actually had an engineer from one of the bigger silicon companies, in our lab debugging his device with us, and it actually turned into a little bit of him having me design a custom circuit board so that we could
wow.
integrate better with testing some of these new devices. And so like I got the experience of actually designing a circuit board that is being reviewed by engineers from a big name silicon company, and actually
Yeah.
kind of learning more of their process of how they're actually developing products, and kind of I learned a ton just because there's a lot more than just that meets the eye, and so
Right.
there's tons of experience in ability to learn in those ways, which I didn't realize starting at the lab.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What about you, Lincoln?
I mean, I would say probably the most common question of when we're starting to work with a new area, new forum, new company is, obviously, what can you do for us? But then the second one is, hey, we have internship opportunities, or how do I post job resumes or job openings to you for that kind of hiring event and stuff like that. So one of the things that with working at the university and the structure of the lab that is kind of unique, we essentially matriculate a quarter of our workforce every single year under ideal conditions, right? If we had a uniform distribution of students of differing ages, then every year, 25% of them are going to graduate and move out to the industry.
Right.
So that as a lab and an organization, we've gotten really good at obviously like training and knowledge retention and having mentoring opportunities for the students. But then it's that connection and that path basically for the students that are graduating with degrees in technology and stuff, moving straight into the positions and into the opportunities that are out there. And like Jeff said, a lot of the time it's you already know the team that's going to be hiring you. That's kind of the team is going to their HR department and saying, I want to open a position and here's your candidate. Can you hire them, please? It's not just post it out to LinkedIn or something for the team.
Right, and actually studies show that most hires, 80%, are coming from like that. Like either I refer someone or there's an internship or apprenticeship, for example. And I saw that and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that. And this is why I always tell people either to I mean, either you network or you're out there doing internships somewhere. Let's talk about something that's going on right now in the news that might scare some students from wanting a career in IT or tech in general. The tech layoffs. And is that having any impact on your side of the house? Let's start with that part, and then I'll do the follow-up question.
Well, I'd love, actually, I haven't talked to these two about what their view on this is.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about the tech industry is, and that's why people always focus on STEM, there's really never, even when there's a layoff, there's somebody else hiring right on the back end.
Right.
There's a lot of redistribution of employees, but it's usually, you land on your feet quick. So I haven't seen that from our customers, in particular in that kind of networking and data communication space. That skill set is always there's always more demand than there is supply. So I think in particular, we're more immune than maybe like a general programmer or someone that's got a more general focus to their degree. But what do you guys think about that?
Well, usually what I see is that when one role is kind of considered obsolete, the skills that you learn from that are still applicable in the next iteration. And another thing is also, sometimes companies will just tell their employees to learn new skills. So like I mentioned earlier that the QA role is being shifted out in one specific company that my dad was working for. Instead, they're just saying, okay, learn this, learn that, and then we can change your role and the things that you do.
Transferable skills.
Yeah.
Right. And probably the recommendation, too, is for any worker, actually, regardless of whether they're just in tech, is to always upskill, right? Leverage those, tuition reimbursement programs or LinkedIn Learning has some, and there's so many of those online learning programs that you can take to, continuously, keep up to date with your industry. Matt, what is your take on all the layoffs that are happening in the tech industry?
So I honestly keep hearing from companies that we work with that they're just looking and looking and looking for people. So
Really?
I really haven't worried too much about it. Just because, from their standpoint, it sounds like that they're just struggling to find people to fill those engineering jobs in some places. So I guess I'm guessing it's just kind of the shift of where people are looking for, people to be working and stuff like that.
Okay, well, that's good news. I like that story.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Jeff. I think probably phrasing it as a redistribution is probably the best way to think of it, right? A lot of the companies, it's the big companies that are in the news with the big numbers for the layoff, but they were also the ones that over the last couple of years had really expanded and really, really kind of bulked up on their workforce. And so I think that what you're seeing is, well, to do what we want to do for this next coming innovation cycle, we don't need all of these folks, but then there's always the next company that's coming up through that is building XYZ widget or XYZ product that's going to be taking those, hey, I need those engineering resources, I got to do our chip layout or our testing team or whatnot, and they're going to be hiring them. So I think that's what you're going to really kind of see more than anything else.
Yeah. So what are some of like the fantastic projects that you've been able to work on that you can share and tell us about? So that's a good question, huh? You're like, what? Wait a minute. I know, Matt, you actually brought up a great one. You gave a great example about how a company in Silicon Valley came and you were able to kind of collaborate, on coming up with a solution. So that's a fantastic one.
I think thing that's been pretty cool is we've started, there's a new technology called Advanced Physical Layer, APL, and it's again that single pair networking, but it's meant for more like factories, and so it's meant to go really long distances. But at the lab, we were kind of the main testing lab for this new technology, and so we actually got to develop some of our own hardware to test these new devices. And so companies actually bought hardware from us that we developed in house, which I got to be a part of, which was I learned a ton from that, and it was really interesting.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Jeff, even Lincoln, you might be able to answer this. So when you guys are creating these new tools, are you going through like whole trademark, copyright, patent, protecting your proprietary information?
Absolutely. So again, one of the cool things is the students actually get to do it. We're building those skills, so
Yeah.
they're developing not only just like the actual work skills, but then product development skills. So we'll
Right.
have business students come in too and help build product sheets and market those materials and do
Yeah.
photo shoots and that kind of stuff. So we
that's
kind of hit it from all aspects. But then yes, we absolutely protect our own IP, and most of what we do is license out these solutions, right? So
Right.
if it's a software solution, just like any software company, we sell licenses. So people pay like an annual fee to get access to a piece of software, or they might buy a piece of hardware, and we do that in close collaboration with UNH Innovation.
Oh, nice.
So Mark's office, he was here on the last show with me. They handle that for the entire campus. So
Okay.
they do all of that out licensing piece. And so it's convenient that he's right down the hall from me, but we get
Right.
to utilize that channel. And it's great. Again, the students get to work on these things.
Right.
Not just the service, so the company comes first for service, but they work on software and hardware that is bought by these Fortune 500 companies that they're using in their internal processes.
Right.
So you get that additional stress outside the academic environment of
Yeah.
if I made it wrong, it's actually impacting customers.
Right,
So,
right. So there's like some product development, sounds like there's some project management here. There's some legal aspects that you kind of get exposed to so that you are aware, not like you have to, draft, and go trademark and copyright, but at least the students are understanding the workflow for what it's like to actually develop and create a product outside of just, we're here to test. So you guys are getting exposed to quite a bit.
Oh yeah, there's a ton we learn at the lab that we do not learn in school.
And again, the lab does really try to focus on what businesses are looking for. So
Right.
over time, we evolve right now. There's a lot of demand for people to have experience in Agile development processes.
Yeah.
And so almost all of our teams are using some sort of Agile process in the students' learning. So they're working in Agile teams, they're doing Agile software practices, they're doing CI/CD type development on the software side. So they're supplementing the academic with actual practical experience too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. How have you guys found that Agile process to help out so far?
Well, it's interesting learning about it in class because I did just recently take a project management class where we talked about Agile and Kanban and Scrum and even Scaled Agile, if you're familiar. But so it's very interesting seeing how it actually works in industry, and it works very well, at least to me personally.
Right.
So I see it the most when I'm doing development for our own application that we use for wireless testing. Also DSL and I think GFast also uses Test Sentinel, which is the name of the application. So that's basically how we compile all of our data when we're running testing. And we generate a report and then send it to the company. And if it passes, then they can be certified and then tell their own customers that, hey, this router or this device is certified, and they can promote it that way. So with Test Sentinel, it's, programming, it can be very fun because I'm using it as well as the customer, but I feel that I use it a lot. Of course, when I'm testing. So if I say to myself, I wish this was a drop down, or I wish this button was a little bit better, then I kind of see the own fruits of my labor, if you will.
Right. Now, when you say I wish it was a drop down, now are you able to make that suggestion of, hey, here's how we can, change this to make it more automated, for example?
Yeah, so, it's very easy. It's a very good environment where all ideas are accepted and encouraged. So, sometimes there might be a little bit of pushback, of course, but
From who? Is it Jeff or Lincoln?
this is Lincoln. It could be from my other boss, Justin, not to name drop
Justin,
him.
you're not here, but we're going to talk about you.
But it can be really fun playing around with ideas.
Yeah.
What if it was this? What if it was that? What if we implemented this sort of feature instead? And it's cool to be able to develop that sort of thing.
So collaboration, presentation, public speaking, I guess, because there's so many skills.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that the interesting thing is that when they're using their own tools for the testing, such as like Test Sentinel, they're kind of the end user and the product owner and the development team. They're kind of a couple of roles squished together that you might not get in all companies or all work or something like that. So you can kind of start to set that, hey, I want to set a product requirement, what about doing this? And then the other piece that comes into that is kind of some of like the problem solving bit, right? So it's like, this is complicated to set up this test environment in this way. How can we make this better? How can we better kind of architect or structure the software? And so the students get to kind of make those suggestions, having done it hands-on, and then being able to kind of say, like, I think X, Y, Z would be better. And then the teams generally do discuss it. And, you know, yeah, there may be like a justification or a pushback from management being like, why do you want to do it that way? You know, kind of sell me your idea a little bit. And usually what that turns into is, you know, it's that development process, right? Of like, how do we make this better and do it in a way that is going to be sustainable kind of in the longer run too.
Right, and that makes sense, right? I think even in the real world, that's what happens, you know what I mean? It's like you present an idea and then you got to hit with challenges, but then you got to sell it. Right, you got to be like, well, hey, I'm trying to create an efficient process for you that could save you $20 million. Do you not want to save $20 million, you know?
And it goes all the way too. So like you guys' idea is Justin then sells to me, like, hey, we want to change the structure of this and it's going to take 2 months to do it. And it's like, all right, well, tell me what you're going to gain from 2 months of work.
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? So, I mean, for other students who are looking to get into the IT, but, you know, in terms of working on the wireless and data industry, all this might sound so techy and like, oh my God, they're testing wireless routers. What is your message to other people who want to get in IT, but are probably like scared because it sounds so complicated?
Well, my advice is just to do it anyway, because you're not going to lose anything. If
do
you
it scared.
Yeah, because really, what do you have to lose? Because like, at the worst comes to worst, if you don't get whatever opportunity, you still put yourself out there, you still were able to learn from the experience, and you can work on it and then try again in a different instance, or try again in the same place.
Right.
For me personally, I had looked at the IOL. I had taken a class actually called Innovation Scholars, where I was exposed to the IOL, and my friend applied before I did. And then I didn't apply for a while because I was like, oh, I don't think I know enough.
Right.
Or I don't think I have enough experience yet. This is the experience. You know? So with the IOL, at least it's very good because they teach you. So, you know, they know that it's a hands-on experience. You don't really have a ton of experience with whatever team you're put into, but hopefully it's something that you're generally interested in, and then you can find joy in, you know, within the place that you're in. And you learn from your mentors, you learn from your other coworkers, and learn on the job and really understand what you're actually doing. So really just, you know, try anyway, because really it's not really that as scary as it seems.
And Lincoln, what's your message before I go to Matt here?
Yeah, I think for me it's been you know, a long time of getting to work on the newest stuff, getting to always be challenged and always be learning something new, and then being able to work with my teams to get them up to speed and working on that same path. And so it's just been a great opportunity to never stop learning, and that's kind of the rule of life, right? Of like, you're always going to be learning, you're never going to know everything all the way through, so you might as well, you know, jump into what career is going to make you excited and work in that phase. So for me, that was definitely the tech and working as an engineer. I hope that's the case for these guys as well. Otherwise, you know, change now.
Yeah, now the time to bow out. Matt, what is it your experience been?
So it's kind of funny. I went into college with the mindset of, I'm gonna go to college and get the degree and get the heck out of here. Like I do not want to like learn. I don't want to be in school. Like I'm gonna get the degree because my parents are saying to get the degree.
Right.
And like I started school and I really fell in love with it. Like I really, you know, high school I kind of, you know, just got by with, you know, did fine, but like didn't really apply myself. And college I kind of started learning stuff that like was really interesting to me, and I really fell in love with it. And you know, now I'm going for a master's degree, which I never thought I'd do. So I would say kind of definitely take the step of faith to try it, and you know, and see what interests you. It also kind of, I think for me, just constantly asking questions and like, okay, so this is working, but why is this working? And like, can I understand more about, you know, this process and like how these things operate and interact together, and just constantly kind of taking a step back and being like, wait, but this does work, but why does it work? And asking those questions constantly and kind of pursuing that you know, that answer, I think is super critical and helpful.
Yeah, that's such an engineering answer, right? That's what my husband always says. Us as engineers, we try to figure out why things work. And if they don't work, we still try to figure out why they don't work either. So, Yeah, spoken like an engineer. And Jeff, what else do you want people to, really understand about the work that you're doing at the Interoperability Lab?
Well, again, this is a great show because it's
Right.
got this New Hampshire focus, and that's what I would like to encourage people. Is, again, if you're in a business that's doing this type of stuff,
Right.
much like take that step in, make a phone call, send an email, and see if we can help out, because we really want to engage the New Hampshire community. We really want to make New Hampshire one of the best tech places to work, not just out in Silicon Valley, but
Yeah.
right here at home. So I'm asking, hopefully, everybody to make that call and do that. And then hopefully also you see, I know we do a lot of testing and we make a lot of products. This is also what we make sitting right
Yeah.
next to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I get a lot
Fantastic
of
teams.
my pride from
Right.
from the work that we do is getting to see these guys go out and really launch into their careers.
And you should be proud, and Lincoln too. You guys should be proud. Very well spoken, Matt and Sriyam. You, I'm just in shock at you are amazing. Like I want
Thank you.
for all the kids in high school, or even if you're in college and you feel like I can't possibly be in tech. You got two people right here who are just doing phenomenal. So don't say you can't. Like you said, do it scared, just try it. And I think the other thing is, it's not like when you guys are in the lab, you're saying to the students, we're looking for someone with 10 years experience to come in the lab, right?
Nope.
This is like this is the entry level. You're starting to learn. So any last words? I'm going to start with Lincoln.
I think that's the hardest question. Yeah. No, in general, it's always been amazing for me just to see what the students are capable of. Every single time I've always said, every single time I underestimate an undergraduate, I always get it wrong, because they're amazing. They tend to be very driven. They are coming in, energized and want to do the work. And they accomplish some pretty amazing things. And I think, one of the things that we've had at the lab, is just always that mentality of
Right.
learn as you go, learn on the job, do the training, and then create the opportunity to do things, even like this, where it's just getting out there and doing something a little different, public speaking and everything. So it's just been such a kind of great opportunity for me and hopefully all of the students that we've gotten to work with.
Is there a company that you haven't worked with yet that you would love to work with?
Probably, actually, if I was going to call out a New Hampshire company,
Yeah, go
by
ahead.
name,
That's why we're here. They could be watching.
We're starting down the path of 5G and getting a lot of that work in the lab. We've been doing stuff with like the Open RAN or ORAN Alliance, and there's a company right in New Hampshire, Parallel Wireless, that I haven't actually gotten to work with directly
Okay.
yet, but they're in that space. So I
Right,
call them out
right.
by name.
I've seen them on LinkedIn hiring. So you guys, Matt, what about you? What is your last take, and what will be your dream company to work for? And I'm going to ask you the same question.
Ooh. So my takeaway, I think, is I'm really grateful for being able to work at the IOL, and it was truly like an opportunity that I just underestimated how much of a benefit it would have on my career path and just in my personal growth. Like I kind of went in I'm a freshman, I need a job, and actually one of the managers reached out to me through a friend, so I didn't even really apply. I applied, but I didn't reach out initially, which was kind of weird for me. I was like, oh, this guy's emailing me. He's like, you should come apply, and I was like, okay, I guess. And so it took a while for me to realize just how much of an opportunity that the lab is, and how much of a blessing that's been to me. But I would just say, if I have any last words, it's to realize that you're gonna just keep on learning in life, and and enjoy that, and really just want to keep on learning more things. And again, like the engineer, I just learn how things work.
Right. Yeah.
And companies that I want to work for, an RF or microwave frequency designer at Analog Devices would be something an area I'm looking.
Oh, okay.
Not totally sure.
Yeah, there's so many BAE, Raytheon. There's so many
Yeah,
companies out.
I really know what I want to do, but where I do it, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, BAE, if you're watching, they're right here. So, and what are your last words and takeaways, and one company that you would be like, I want to work for?
Well, similar to Matt, I don't really have a specific company in mind. Just something in development, something IT related, possibly UI UX type of thing. But in terms of my last words, I would just say don't be afraid to ask for help because it really is out there, and when you do it, people are very, very happy to help. It's literally their lifeblood, what they would love to do. And also just to go out of your comfort zone. You don't have to commit to anything if you don't like it, and you have so much time. So much time. It feels like you don't when you're 20 years old. You feel like the clock is ticking for some reason, but you actually have your entire life to do anything you want to do. So
that's very true. Words of wisdom for a 20-year-old. So yeah, some adults can't even articulate that. Let's be honest about that. Jeff, what are your last words and a dream partnership?
Well, I'm going to cheat on this answer. I already work for a great company. It's a great day to be a wildcat. And the thing that excites me, and I think Lincoln touched on too, is always the new technology. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm in a very fortunate position where we get to live, probably not on the super bleeding edge. We're not a small startup, but right behind it.
Right.
And so we're always on that new thing, always on that new learning. I'm tracking things like quantum computing right now, personally in my life. So that's just super exciting.
Yeah.
And I just love to see how tech evolves over time. So
yeah, it's tech is always growing, but no, you don't have to say where you want to work, but who you want to partner up with at the lab, because we already know you have a great job, right? So yeah.
Again, that's a tough question for me to answer because we have 200 global partners. I've established really great relationship with them. Yeah. The groups I want to connect with are the companies here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
That's an area where we have traditionally not had that same growth.
Right.
And I don't want to single anybody out, but there's a lot of opportunity there. So I'm challenging your audience to give me an email or give me a call and see how we can partner.
No, that would be great because that's the whole focus of Get Tech Smart is to really put a spotlight on our tech sector, but also to encourage that collaboration with businesses and not having to go to Silicon Valley or having to go across the border. Let's make New Hampshire Silicon Valley, and put that red dot on the map so that the whole world can see us. So I'm really glad that you were able to come back and bring members of the team and students who are working on in the lab, hands-on, and who can actually provide their insightful hands-on experience and let you guys know what's going on. Or for any student out there, or it doesn't matter the age, anyone who's interested in getting into IT and getting into telecom and wireless in terms of data testing, now you know. Now you know, and if you have more questions, they can reach out to you, right?
Absolutely.
You can reach out and ask questions. Guys, thank you so much for being here. You're welcome back anytime. If you actually do start testing the quantum computing, please come back. That is a whole show.
It's right on the roadmap.
On its own, yeah. That is a whole show. I'm still trying to figure things out and do my own research. So please come back. You guys are welcome back anytime. And for everybody else watching, thank you so much for watching another episode of Get Tech Smart. And just remember, we have a partnership with the Granite State Collaborative, News Collaborative that is, and they're gonna amplify this message across New Hampshire. So check out your local TV news medias for this episode. And again, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for another episode.